trying to.
You're funny. Down the other day when you go, forget this, you were ready to tear down.
He gave us a big catalog of everything they grew.
Think about it.
If they ever sat, weren't they?
Yeah.
Pretty sweet deal.
I should go ask Samantha that question.
Who's chair of this?
It's finance and safety.
Who's second
It's
chair?
you and Carrie.
You want to do- can you
Yes,
do
I
it?
can do it. Okay, it's 6:35, and we'll call the Joint Finance and Safety Committee to order, please. We're gonna, requesting approval of amendments to the municipal code, Title III, Municipal Court.
So, court costs have not been revised since 2010, and neither has the municipal code Title III Municipal Court section either. As such, we're proposing updates based on the current TCA laws and MTS guidance, which is what I've presented to you in your packets there. I don't want to go through all the amendments, but they're listed there in the background staff and comments. The amendments would ultimately result in an increase of $38.75 to the city per case. That's less than $2 per year increase since 2010, which is the last time we increased the fees. And only in the cases where we have to pay the $13.75, which is proposed in here, would a citizen have to pay the $13.75, which is making that a wash. So, open to any questions that you have. We did run this through MTS. And got their feedback on it as well, so, I can go through those changes, or if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, you said they were based on, when you first started reading, you're based on laws, something.
The most up-to-date TCA law, so, a recent bill that was passed increased one of these fees from $1 to $2. That was passed in this last session. So that impacts actually two sections of this ordinance.
Okay.
So, they're not big impacts.
Like, what's the total, like, how many cases, and what would be roughly a total that we get from that, if you have that?
Let's see here. In January, and police may be able to help me with this. I think we issued 117 tickets. We charged $235. Under the new fee schedule, it would be $468.
That sounds correct, I didn't have the numbers.
In December, $80. Under the new fee, it would be $300. November, $126. New fee would be $300. So. That's for 117 tickets in January.
You're talking about the part that goes from $1 to $2, right?
This is the overall
Confused.
court fees.
That's $38 per case. $38.75 to the city per case.
That's right, that's right.
And so, if we have how many cases? You said 100?
Well, in January, we issued 117 tickets. And under the current fee schedule, it's $235. And this is our cost to courtware, is that correct?
Yes, and that is one of the things, a courtware cost had doubled from $2 to $4 a ticket, so that has to be absorbed through this, increase for our courtware management system.
And courtware is our ticket processing system? Yeah. So they were charging us $2 per ticket, they're now charging us $4. So that's just one part of this.
Right.
I want to add something to, I looked it over as well, but the, piece of this, the city has been paying, there's a $13 fee, is that right, Mike?
Yes, that's the litigation tax, has to go to the state.
It goes straight to the state of Tennessee, and most cities pass that on to those that are in court. The city has been paying that 13, that's been coming off of what we receive for the court costs. So we've been absorbing those, and this, to align with MTS, the recommendations, what a lot of other cities do, pass that on to the person paying that fee instead of the city paying that for them.
And the other was the 125, and that was up how much?
So that's $25
It used to be
increase. So I
100.
think the current fee is 100, increased to 125.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else to come before this joint finance and safety committee? Stand adjourned.
at chemical bids again for the upcoming year, and we had that bid opening back up on the 14th, and I've got highlighted the low bidders for each chemical that we feed. So it's the first time in several years they've been this much lower. So hopefully keep trending down. So hard to know exactly what we'll spend, depends on weather and the amount of water we treat and all that. So just need approval on this, on low bidders for these chemicals.
Are we buying the same amount as we bought last year?
Pretty much. Like I said, it's hard to know. Sometimes you may feed a little more, sometimes a little less.
So like, do we have any stockpiled, or did we use it all? Or-
Well, there's always carryover. You know, we'll have some in our tanks, you know, that was bought out of this past budget year. But this is just approving the upcoming pricing that we have for the next year.
Any other questions for Ricky? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else to come before this committee, we are adjourned. The time is 6:55, and I'll call the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting to order.
Good evening. I had gotten with Scotty, actually have him here tonight. We've been working on some cameras and things throughout the park complex, but he had brought to me that we potentially would need to replace some of the existing cameras in our facility. So I'm gonna kind of let him talk about that, if you will.
Hello, everyone. So the cameras that we currently have at the Parks and Rec are non-NDAA compliant, which means, according to the federal government, they're not safe for use, and it is actually illegal for federal government institutions to use them. And I just think it'd be a good idea for us to follow suit, be proactive about it, and maintain our security. I know it's a big cost, but it's hard to put a price on keeping things safe.
What exactly do you mean by they're not safe for use?
So there has been instances, not in our particular brands that we have, but Chinese based, Chinese manufactured cameras.
Okay, so not with it's
Okay.
the software, being able to hack and
Yes.
things like that.
So if they're Chinese manufactured in China, it does give the potential for a backdoor access
I got you.
through the cameras.
There's cameras now?
Yeah, we have them throughout the entire facility in almost every area.
The parking lots?
We have some on the front of the building. We've recently put a few up, like on the maintenance shop in the rear. We've got some on the pool bathhouse. It's also getting the rear parking lot, jungle gym bathrooms. Of course, they're all at our parks, park bathrooms, farmers market. So we've tried to have cameras up in all locations.
So are the CCTV Security Pros cameras, are those made in America, or?
No, there's very few made in America, but they are NDAA compliant. They're made in Vietnam and South Korea. And those have been deemed safe by the federal government.
Is this just the first replacement of the existing cameras that we have throughout the city?
Yes,
So-
this will be the biggest chunk of them is what we have in MRC. We do have smaller camera systems throughout the city that will need to be replaced too, but it'll be on a smaller scale.
And then those numbers are in the upcoming budget, correct?
I hope to spend some of the IT money that we have still left. I'm gonna spend as much as I can in this budget to get those smaller systems, so that it won't impact our next budget as much.
Any other questions for Scotty? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Kara's not here, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Any other business for the Parks and Recreation Committee? If not, we'll stand adjourned.
call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the McMinnville City Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
Sally Brock,
Present.
Deidre Dunlap,
Present.
Steve Harvey,
Here.
Rachel Kirby.
Here.
Carrie Morton,
Here.
Mayor Chastain,
Present.
Kara Youngblood is absent.
Item number 2 on the agenda is consideration of minutes. Each member of the board should have received those in their agenda packet. If there are no requests for additions, corrections, or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading and approve them as read.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sally Brock,
Second.
second by Ms. Deidre Dunlap. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Item 3 is recognition of visitors. If anyone wishes to address the board, please step to the podium and state your name for the record. Hearing none, item 4 is recognition of employees. We have several department heads here this evening. If anyone wishes to give any recognition, please come on up. Item 5 is communications. I did receive one from Nolan that was not in the agenda packet. It is from Wanda Strayhorn, who is the chairperson for CASA, or the Court-Appointed Special Advocates. That we had previously approved for them to have a banner on the lot for March 17th to April 21st, but they did not get this banner in time. It is now in their possession, and I would like the board to vote to allow the placement of that banner from June 2nd to June 16th. I'll entertain a motion to approve this amended letter.
What does it say?
The banner?
Oh.
Here, Tim, maybe you could hold this side.
It's on a good
Give a child.
And there's a QR code for those that would be interested to sign up, to scan this, and they can help, so. That's it.
That's great. I make a motion.
A motion by Ms. Brock,
I'll second it.
second by Ms. Morton, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 6 is petitions. There are none. Item 7 is unfinished business. There is none listed. Does any member of the board have any unfinished business? Hearing none. Item 8 is new business. Does any member of the board have any new business? Item 9 is resolutions. Item 9A is resolution number 2025-20, a resolution of the city of McMinnville to purchase 39 mobile TACAN radios, 3 dual-band portable TACAN radios, and 8 single-band TACAN radios from Motorola Solutions for $239,322, authorizing the city administrator to issue necessary purchase order on behalf of the city and to express the time when this resolution becomes effective. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Carrie Morton,
Second.
second by Ms. Rachel Kirby. Any questions for Deputy Chief?
Yes, I was gonna say that currently we've already purchased about 50% of the radios that we need to be able to go on the TACAN network. We was fortunate to get those through grants. But these additional radios should get us up to where when the system goes online, hopefully sometime towards the end of the year, we'll be able to go on it there and everybody have their radios. We actually budgeted $250,000, so this is come under budget.
And, yeah, Sally and I have been involved in these conversations at 911, and this is just another measure to make sure that all of our first responders and 911 are on the same channels and able to communicate more easily. So that's EMS, fire, police, and again, the 911 dispatch center. So this is a much-needed upgrade in their communications capability. So, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby.
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10 is ordinances. Item 10A is ordinance number 2025-09, an ordinance of the city of McMinnville to amend Title 18, Chapter 2, Section 57 of the McMinnville Municipal Code, existing sewer use ordinance, and to change the rule number of the existing regulations to the current rule numbers to express the time when the ordinance becomes effective. This is the second and final reading. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Brock,
Second.
second by Ms. Morton. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sally Brown,
Yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10B is ordinance number 2025-10, an ordinance of the city of McMinnville to adopt the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, and concluding June 30, 2026. This is the first reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Carrie Morton. We gotta have a second to discuss.
Second.
A second by Ms. Deidre Dunlap. I had intended on making, or requesting an amendment to the nonprofit charitable donations list that we had made, but Ms. Dunlap has put together a list I think everybody has in front of them with some recommendations to move some things around, and then I believe Mr. Harvey has some things he wanted to discuss as well. So, Ms. Dunlap, I'll let you go over your proposals for the charitable donations list.
My proposal is just circling back to the main item of discussion for me was to not leave Meals on Wheels at 0. So considering what one idea that was proposed to us, the 59% that we decided not to go with, I did consider those amounts as well. And the total amount that we were left at, which was $148,366. So basically, it was just reallocating some of the amounts that we had approved, shuffled some things around so that Meals on Wheels did in fact get a donation. And it comes in at 148, so just under the 148,366. Everyone does have a copy. I don't know if I would need to read those one at a time, or if everyone being able to look at the copy is enough.
I think it looks good, and it still comes under what we had looked at previously. And again, it gets Meals on Wheels, some funding from the city. Again, it's not exactly what they were asking for, but it's not 0, and still keeps everybody else pretty close to what was previously approved.
Would it be possible to bring the library back to their asked amount for the one time to 22, and then take 1,000 each from 2 other?
I think so. Taking 1,000 from the senior center's adjusted amount and 1,000 from the chamber's adjusted amount would bring the library back to the 22 that we approved. That does leave the chamber with this new recommendation, the chamber at 34 and the senior center at 22. Just going down the list, Black History Museum, again, this is just this new recommendation. The Black History Museum, 5, which is what we approved. The chamber adjusted to 34. The Emergency Food Bank at 2, which is what we approved. Families in Crisis at 7, which is a little more than what we approved. Home at 7, which is what they requested and what we approved. The library at 22. Main Street McMinnville at 30. Meals on Wheels at 7. Rescue Squad at 7. The Senior Center at 22. And Young Men United at 5, which brings us to 148.
So in looking through all of their things that they turned in, the Chamber of Commerce has specifically put $28,000 that was specified for tourism in their paperwork. So I've asked the questions, and I don't know why we couldn't take out, I mean, we could leave them at 40 and take out the 28 and put it into tourism, which is what they're using it for. And then, I mean, I had some different numbers. We could still have the 148 or 154 or 52, whatever, I think 152, by moving some of those numbers around. So, I don't know why we can't take the 28,000 and put it in a different budget. And I know, but I've asked,
What did they say?
Sam,
It can be, if it's gonna be used for tourism development,
and
it can be used, it can be put into that tourism fund.
she specifically put in 3 different columns what it was used for and put tourism under it.
But you asked the chamber about it?
It was in their paperwork.
Oh, okay.
It was on their, I went through all of their stuff, and that's, some line items weren't listed as tourism, but there were 3
Yeah.
that were listed as tourism. So, that's my question. You know, and then, I mean, I don't wanna see the senior center obviously lose much funding, because they run a tight ship over there.
Yeah.
And if you took that 28 out, I mean, you could either give as the amount that said we were gonna give, you could either add some to some of these other ones, or at least you could get Meals on Wheels 10 out of it even. So, I mean, I can run down my numbers if you'd like for me to run down my numbers, but if that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
fine with me.
yeah.
Okay, so I went back to the top, and I just kinda looked through all of everything they turned in, and looked at their budgets, looked at their utilities or rents and things like that they have to pay. So I had the Black History Museum, I put them at 7 total. Of course, the chamber in this budget would have 12, because the 28 would go into the tourism budget. I left the food bank at 2. Families in crisis, I left it, they had 10. Home had their 7 they requested.
On families in crisis, where do you see 10? I see 8 in 2025.
Okay, well, they were approved for 5,
Uh-huh.
so I added 5 to that.
Oh, that's what you
Yes,
had.
yeah, because I didn't have this in front of me. I was going off of what they were approved for.
I got you.
Home got 7. The library, I left the library where they were at 22. Main Street, I left them at 35. Let's see, where am I at? Meals on Wheels, I gave them 10. The rescue squad, I left where they were at the 774.25. The senior center, I brought them up to 30. Young Men United, they had a total of 10. And I think that got us to the 152, I think, if that's my math on my phone.
Young Men United was what?
10.
So is 152 the goal, or 148 and some change? I never really put a calculator to that. Which number are we shooting for?
Overall, we're looking for 234,000
Right.
with those dues, which those dues are 82,049, so 152 and some change is really what the max would be to stay under that 4%.
Okay.
And that, I mean, like I said, I just took that 28 and I kind of scrambled it into another. I mean, some nonprofits are working on a very shoestring budget, and that was really what I looked at. And then adding the 10 to the Meals on Wheels and getting the senior center back up.
So you're saying since we've done everything we're doing in-house now to promote tourism and the money we're spending there, we need to keep that here instead of giving it to the chamber, what they're saying they're using it for tourism, and
Yes,
put it towards this?
yes.
Okay.
Because that, I mean, that's, like I said, if I hadn't pulled all that up to wherever I saw it, but there was 3 line items, and they added up to $28,000, and it was for tourism. And the research I did from online for the Tennessee people, and then I talked with Sam about it. And she said since it was specifically for that, then she felt like that it would be okay to put it in their budget and get it out of our donation budget.
Is anybody from the chamber, have you talked to anybody from the chamber about it?
No, I haven't spoken to them about it. Like I said, I just looked at their stuff they turned in. They all turn in basically the same thing, except, like I said, hers had 3 line items that specifically were tourism related.
Do you know what it was for? I mean, do you remember?
Sam?
I think it was for, stuff for the visitor center over at the chamber in their main office, and then there was $7,500
For swag,
swag, and then,
visitor relocation meetings,
$500.
$500. The biggest one was welcome center support, which we don't have a welcome center yet, $20,000.
Yeah, I don't feel bad about that.
I mean,
And we got another reading next week too, so if
Yeah.
somebody wants to come, our next meeting.
2 weeks.
That
I
takes
don't
them to 12.
have any issue with that either. I mean, that keeps us right where we were supposed to be.
That work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That gives everybody
Gives everybody more than.
more than,
Mhm. I was focused on that 148 number instead of that 152. And that puts you at 152, 425.
And that doesn't change any of the ended financials. If we go right back to that 152, 425, that doesn't change anything overall, ending cash.
Well, I'll make a motion to amend the nonprofit proposals to what was presented by Ms. Morton.
Second that.
All right. Any further questions or discussion about this amendment? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
So this will not be the whole thing, this is just that.
This is an amendment.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Victor Dunlap,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby.
yes.
Carrie Morton.
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye. Motion passes.
I was looking over everything again, just trying to think of other ways to save some money, and I was kinda curious to what you guys thought about the fact that our general fund budget from June 30th of this year to June 30th of next year is projected to drop about $1.5 million, which puts us down around, and these are really round numbers I'm speaking of in general and all this stuff. Will put us around $5 million at the end of next year, which is as low, if I remember right, Samantha, as our percentage we voted on, 5 million is about the mark that we really don't need to go below. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And
That's
so.
24.7%. Our goal was 25, but
Right.
when we get down to the extra decimal point, we're at 24.7 technically.
And another thing I just noticed, and I mean, I guess we kinda knew this, but from two budget cycles ago, our revenue was around almost over $1.5 million less than what it is now, so our revenue's come up to around 19. Is that where we're at?
So I've got a slide in here. Here's a graph of our revenue over the past almost 10 years. That includes everything grant all in, but it has definitely slowed down like you and I talked about it. year-over-year growth has pulled back a little bit.
But what were we, let's see,
So this year, we estimate to end at 17,589,000. Last year, we ended at 17,348,000, so you've only gained $250,000 from this time last year to this time.
but this year what were we? Not what we're projecting for next year, but what,
That's where we are. So last year, June of 2024, we were at 17,348.
okay,
This June, we'll be at 17,589.
so we've gone up a little bit.
Just a small, usually we were jumping $1 million or, substantial, and we've slowed way down.
All right. So, roughly a $20 million budget overall, and our payroll is about 70% of that.
I think it's 67. 65%, 68%, I'm sorry. The big blue over there on the right is your personnel expenses, so wages, overtime,
Yeah.
benefits.
Which is in line, not uncommon at all, but
Sure.
fortunately, there's not a lot of other places to find it, to get money from. And I just handed out a few options. We'd approve both a 2% cost of living raise and a 3% step raise. If we only gave the 3% step raise, and again, these are really round numbers, that would save about $180,000. Another option is there were some grade changes that Libby recommended recently that we could not do if we chose to, that would save about $107,000. And then if we did not do both the 2% cost of living and the 3% step raise, which is 5% total of which is what we approved, that would save about $450,000. And then I also have down the administrator's raise was very recent and fairly extensive, so we probably I would probably be in favor of not doing the step or the 2% cost of living raise for that position. Regardless of if we do or not do any of the other three options, we could still do that one, or do it along with the others also. And I have spoken to Nolan about this. And none of this is easy, but I just feel like we gotta get some somewhere, and I don't really know where else to do it. Now, you can look at capital project, or capital expenses, and I don't know, there. What we could get much out of.
I have a question or maybe a suggestion.
Okay.
Samantha has a presentation, kind of summarize where we're at.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would help, kind of set things and then pick up where you're at, or just
Yeah.
a suggestion.
You mean like right now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're just diving right in. I'm here for wherever y'all want to see.
Take all the help we
Okay,
can
I'll
get.
go quick. So, as proposed, so as we are right now, even with the amended nonprofits, we're ending at 5,108,000, like, Steve was talking about, which was 24.7%. Our goal was 25%. But in being utterly transparent, I wanted to show that we're not quite there, but we're very, very close. Overall, that's a deficit of $1,470,000. Most of that, or, yeah, a lot of that is capital, but, 282,000 of that is an operating deficit. So whenever we say structurally balanced, are we operating within our means? We're $282,000 in the hole whenever you talk operating across the board. Since it is a reappraisal year, I wanna hit again on the tax rate history for the city of McMinnville. So the tax rate as approved, or as proposed, is 1.3212. That is the lowest it's been since prior to 1980, and that's as far as my numbers went back that I could get to easily. So that is just because of the reappraisals going way up on the city property as a whole. But you can see there just a quick history of what that tax rate has done, and then whenever you overlay the revenue on what that means for the city, your revenue is continuously increasing even though the tax rate isn't increasing. And whenever Steve talked about revenue neutral at our finance committee meeting, that tax rate drop down to 1.3212 doesn't mean the city's losing revenue, it's staying flat. The small tick up you see there on revenue is from new construction that wasn't on our 24 tax roll that will be on our 25 tax roll. So there is some revenue growth, even though we're seeing a tax rate decrease, but the average homeowner isn't gonna feel the brunt of that reappraisal, like what I think a lot of people are imagining is gonna happen. So our revenue slide, you'll see the growth over the past 10 years there, from where we are right now, current budget, to next year, $1.5 million additional revenue, but 1.6 million of that is in grants. So if we don't have that expenditure because the grant isn't awarded, then we don't have that revenue. So I just wanna keep that at the front of everyone's mind.
That's where my $19 million came from, was proposed 25, 26, but that's a majority of the difference there is grant money.
Sure, yes. So total revenue for fiscal year 25-26 as proposed is $19,180,000, which is 1.5 million ahead of this year. Expenditures also, of course, increasing. You can really see COVID there on that line, but they've gone up $939,000 from this year's budget, so a 4% increase over last year, as proposed. Whenever you lay those two things on top of each other, you can kind of see a more accurate trend of what is happening on the city financials. So you see that revenue and expenditures are both increasing pretty consistently, but you can see that expenditures have outpaced the revenue. So that was where the tax rate increase came from a few years ago. They're both increasing, but whenever you look at that gap growing, that's where we really have to start getting creative on what we're gonna do for revenue in future years. Quick summary of debt, we have two pieces of general fund debt service every year. The Milner Center is about $650,000 each year. The Park Theater renovations are $130,000. Park Theater we paid off in 2034, that's the small blue bar across the top. The green is the Milner Center, it'll fall off there about 5 years after that in 2039. The transparent bars, that was Street Haven, Main Street McMinnville renovations. I believe there was a fire truck in there at some point. I think that was rolled in with the Main Street renovations. Quick highlights of what is in the budget as presented. So back to what Steve was talking about, there's a 2% COLA and a 3% step for all employees. The 2% COLA is for every single position. The 3% step is only for those hired April the 1st of 2025 or prior to that. It will not apply to someone who was just recently hired in. 1% extra to the TCRS unfunded liability. This budget includes 2 new heavy equipment operator positions in the Public Works Department, and it also has 1 part-time person that would be split between animal control and mowing, helping with urban forestry, mowing the rights of ways and things during the summertime, but also helping out our animal control officer. He's a 1-man department, help fill in on weekends, holidays, that sort of thing. The major capital items or projects as proposed, Police vehicles, a PSU vehicle. You all just voted on the police TACN radios. Fire also needs those same radios, and that is in the budget as proposed. Heaters for the fire station, a paver hot box, PCI study, salt spreader, sidewalk grates. They're not gonna happen this year. I think they're scheduled to be delivered on July 1st, so we're close, but it's not gonna happen. They've been pushed to next year. Milner Center sound and cardio equipment, a lighting rig at the Park Theater, sidewalks on Cardinal Drive, and then there's $500,000 of street paving, which isn't truly capital, but I wanted to highlight that that is in this budget. The grants that we talked about on the revenue side, a large portion of that is for the police department for recruitment and retention and overtime. Assistance to firefighter grant, the Bobby Ray and Potter Lane wetlands are the majority of what the grant revenue and expenditures are. Those things the bulk of that will be happening in this budget. I believe each of those are over $400,000 apiece. There's a mural grant down at Park Theater and upgrades, and then there's an animal friendly spay neuter grant over in the animal control budget. So the smaller pie graph on your left is what we've actually spent over the past 3 years. The bigger pie graph on your right is as proposed. So you'll see the animal control, even though their budget went up $50,000, that was 0.1% whenever you look at the whole piece, the whole pie. Police is right at 25%, fire is right in line. Capital projects has gotten a little bit smaller. General government went down 1%, urban forestry went down 1%. Again, that's a small department. Park Theater went up, mostly because of those grants. That expenditure is budgeted on theirs. Parks and Rec went down 1%, and Public Works went up 3%. That's largely because of the street paving being moved out of capital back into operating. And then Community Development Department is exactly the same. This is a slide we were just looking at. So personnel services make up 68% of the whole budget as a whole, all of your people cost. Next in line is contractual services at 12%, supplies and capital outlay coming in right there at 5 and 7%, all the way down to debt service making up 4% of our budget. That grants and contributions, the 2%, that's the donations we just discussed. So out of the whole budget, 2% is for grant or contributions to the nonprofits. And then fixed charges, insurances, deductibles, things like that. Overall building materials, Frank has some in his budget, but whenever you look at the whole picture, it's a very, very small percentage. A quick glance at the other funds that are in the budget. We always talk general fund, but here is just a recap of where we are on the rest of those. The drug fund, street aid, solid waste. New this year, the tourism. And then the last line there is water and wastewater. As you all know, Ricky's got a lot of big projects starting and fixing to start. So that water and wastewater budget includes beginning the water treatment plant, or I guess we've already began. We're gonna continue working on the water treatment plant. And then he has some CDBG projects and grants going on for some inflow and infiltration correction.
That's the biggest pile of dirt I've ever seen, by the way.
It's large.
It's gonna get larger.
And then our last slide to wrap it up is the water fund debt service. So he's got a lot of that stuff falling off. This does not reflect what would be happening on the water treatment plant. State revolving fund loan, that's gonna be going on there next year, but this is where we are, and you can see that significantly decreasing by year 2029, and then again by 2032, you're down, but it's gonna stay more flat than what you see right there, but that's the last slide I have. Go back to this one, because that kind of shows what Steve was talking about. I believe the 70% is kind of what we always thought, but it is really 68% that personnel makes up the general fund as a whole. By and far the largest piece of the pie there.
I think one point that hadn't been discussed yet is the selling of the Pacesetters building. Even though that is just a one-time windfall of cash that would still give us a little cushion going into future budget cycles. Because I think we'll get significantly more money than we paid for it, I would think. But, I mean, things are more expensive for us, just like they are our constituents. And I can't in good conscience vote to cut cost of living for our employees. I mean, they're the ones that keep the city going. And, at this point in time, I can't in good conscience do that. So, not all of it anyway.
My recommendation of the three options that are there would have been that instead. I don't think the grade change, eliminating those would be good, because those are just needed, and, I mean, it's all needed, but, and then I wouldn't wanna do the whole 5% either, but I thought still giving a 3% raise overall was not bad. And the cost of living worked better to not do than the step raise for some reason. I don't totally get it all, but it works better that way. It's just percentages, but that would be my recommendation of the three, and then the administrators that I spoke of also. So I'll make a motion to amend the budget to what I just said, to give the 3% step raise and not the 2% cost of living, and also not the administrators' cost of living or step.
Grade changes.
No. Only the cost of living,
So keep the grade changes in.
yes.
Libby, does that doesn't affect everybody though, does it?
Which,
A step raise?
so the step raise is the minimum. We have to do that. That's what we committed to on the pay scale. That's the 3%.
Yeah.
The 2% is the COLA.
Mhm.
You remember last year our consultant recommended that we do a 3% COLA. We did 1.5. This year he came back and said, do a 1%, that would get us caught up with everyone else in July. We did half. So that 1.5 from last year, half this year, that is the 2% COLA. That shifts our pay scale. So that would be the thing that if you don't wanna do that, don't do that. But we have to do the step because Steve and I talked about it. That creates compression. When we hire people in, they come in on a step. And if I've got a guy at a step 2 and I hire somebody with a couple years' experience and I put him on a 2, but we have a guy working here and he's got 3 or 4, they are now making the same amount. And that is the compression thing, is what we got out of when we implemented this a couple years ago with the consultant. So the 3%, that is the step that we do every year. 2%'s in addition. Grade and step changes are in addition based on market data.
So what did you say keeps us from compression?
The step.
The step.
Mhm. When you hire someone in, if they have no experience, they start at a step 1, and then the next budget cycle, July 1st, they go to a step 2. That's how we progress on our steps. The COLA moves the amount in each step by whatever that COLA is. Last year, we moved it 1.5%.
And if we don't sell, which I'm all for selling the Paysetter property, but if we don't between now and next year at this time, we're gonna really be trying to figure out what to do at that point.
So with compensation, you pay now or you pay later. We We had that huge investment when we got the consultant in because we went years and years where we did not address it. Something we're gonna do this year is go to the consultant, have him restructure our pay scale, which will help create something more consistent, so every year I'm not up here saying we need to move this position, that position. The good thing is, this year, the very large increases that have been going on have tapered off. So the average that people are given is 3 to 3.5. Last 3-4 years, we've seen anywhere from 4 to 8%, 10 and 15 for police and fire. Everything is kind of tapered off and we're back to the norm, which is the 3%. And that's what our step system is based on. So we cannot do any grade changes or step changes this year. See what the consultant comes back with when he updates our pay scale. And there may or may not be changes that he recommends next year if we don't do anything this year. There will be some, because some of the grade changes I recommended were significant increases from last year.
I can get behind the step raise, foregoing any steps or COLA for the executive position, and have a discussion with Ms. Youngblood about getting a discussion on the books for building and grounds about the pay setters billing.
So you're leaving in the 2% cost of living?
No, I couldn't get behind getting rid of both of them, but, I mean, I'm fine with the step raise for sure, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, these were just options.
With this step raise, I mean, how many people are actually getting a raise?
Everyone,
Everyone.
unless you are
Everyone.
hired after April 1st.
Okay, so everyone goes up.
Everyone is eligible for one step.
Okay.
And in an ideal state, that's what we would be doing every year. It's just been so volatile the past several years. There's just been so much movement in the market data that we're moving positions, we're giving additional steps just to try to keep up.
Are we in a fairly good position with that now?
Close.
Close.
Close. The 1.5 COLA last year and the one this year, that's what's keeping us from the market. But we're a lot better off than we were. We're very close. And with things tapering off, we shouldn't be left behind.
But if we cut the COLA, we're only gaining 180,000.
That's right.
I know.
The grade changes and the step is 107, if you did both of those.
Talk a little bit more about them.
Grade and step changes?
Yeah.
So the grade changes, we had 2 positions in admin. We had 1 in community development. The biggest portion is gonna be your water, wastewater, and public works. That is your heavy equipment operators, and they're underpaid. So the recommendation was to give them 2 steps. We can't move them a grade because we have compression. The manager of these positions are in that grade. So my recommendation was 2 steps. That's also a position we've had a lot of turnover in. We moved them a grade last year and it's slowed down. So we've made some progress.
I have a question.
Yes.
The step saves us 180,000?
The step, the 3%?
COLA.
The COLA.
The COLA's 179,717,
COLA.
so that's 180. And then the grade and step changes alone are 107. So if you did no COLA and no grade changes, it'd be about 287 savings.
Which would balance our budget structurally, operationally.
But we have to do the step.
Yes. If you wanted to just do a COLA, I would highly recommend don't hire anybody for the next year, because you would have compression, and that is extremely hard to get out of. We have a lot of that right now with fire and with heavy equipment operators. Minimum would be the step, which is the 3%. That moves everybody on the pay scale.
How many employees do we have?
163.
And my motion was to only leave out the cost of living and leave the grade changes, but if someone wanted to make another motion to do both, they could, or second mine, or neither.
Have we talked about the administrators? Like, I have not seen anywhere, have we talked about his step or anything?
city
Yeah, it's also, that was also in my motion to
Yeah.
not,
So, but I don't recommend, I don't recall us talking about moving that at all this year.
Well, he follows the policy, the compensation policy. He is on our process as far as he is assigned a grade and he is in a step. Right now, he's kind of in between because of the recent increase. But after the board decides whatever pay changes go to the city administrator, he then follows our compensation policy, which is the pay scale with the grade assignment and then the step every year, which is a 3%.
but my motion was for neither for this year,
For just administrator.
for just the administrator.
Is that a significant amount?
5,600.
Oh, that, no.
I'm only in favor of the last line. Sorry, Nolan.
It's quite all right.
And that's the only one I'm really in favor of too. I mean, honestly, we're all living in this day and time right now. And, I mean, it's $180,000, which to a one single person, but this is what our ending fund balance is. We're just a little under the 25%. You know, it's hard enough to find employees, especially in fire and police.
Heavy equipment.
And heavy equipment operators.
Yep.
And if we don't have those three things, if we can't fill those positions, then we're not really gonna have anything. And we know what a turnover that we've had. So, I mean, it's $180,000, leaving it like it is. That's my recommendation.
What about how much then?
No, leaving what you had before, right? I mean, leaving it like it was gets us to this right here.
Correct. That is the step plus the COLA,
Yes.
plus the grade and step changes.
And I'll give you another example to kind of put it in perspective. The last property tax increase we did, which was what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, raised it about $500,000. And that's about what a 5% payroll increase does. That's one property tax increase. So if we do that every year, you can see where I'm going. And we can't do a property tax increase every year.
No.
So we're somewhere we gotta do something different. We have to.
So not giving the grade changes would save 107.
Yes,
Correct.
107.
Is there anything else we should know that you know?
Honestly, it's pay today, pay tomorrow. We cannot do this year. And after he redoes our pay scale, he may come back next year and say, you need to do a 3% COLA and you need to move these positions, or not. This is what the market data is today. This is, the grade changes and step increases are based on what the market data is today. I've never seen the market data go down, but it isn't going up like it was. So we are much closer to being in line and competitive than we have been. And like when I talk about heavy equipment operators, private sector pays so much more than we do. It's very hard to keep them engaged. Police and fire, you know, we got that niche. Private sector's not pulling them, but other municipalities will. We've lost several fire too. A lot of cities are expanding. There's so much development going on in Murfreesboro and Cookeville. They're adding stations. They're starting to pay some county departments, so we lose a lot.
So when you say pay later, we'll just have to increase that.
We could not do it this year. The consultant may come back next year and say, you're 2.5%, 3% behind and you need to add that COLA. Redo our pay scale and then recommend moving these people. So it's either you can do it today, you can wait and do it tomorrow.
But we're gonna do it one way or the other.
You will, or you'll have turnover and you'll hire people in at lower salaries.
I'm happy to make a new motion.
Well, I mean, if, to just leave everything like it is.
If no one seconds,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if no
You don't
one
need to make
seconds
a-
his, there's no need for a motion. It just dies for lack of a second, and we just accept payroll or the rest of the budget as it was presented. So,
Except for,
Except for Nolan.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, but so far, I don't believe there was a motion for that.
Well, I will make that motion.
So, the motion from Ms. Brock is to leave everything else the way it is, with the exception of
Nolan.
step and COLA for the administrator.
Exactly.
So there's a motion for that. Do I have a
Is
second?
that the right language? To leave
If-
his where his is, that's the right language.
Yes, if you're gonna leave the step plus the 2% COLA, plus the grade and step changes.
you're talking specifically about.
Yeah, I'm talking about no.
With you, yeah, you're,
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. So we have had two amendments, one for nonprofit appropriations and one regarding compensation for this upcoming fiscal year for the city administrator. So we will now vote on ordinance 2025-10 as amended.
I do have a question. Where we were gonna put that money into tourism, does that budget doesn't it need an amendment though as well?
You talking about from the chamber?
Yes.
We're not putting it in tourism, we're putting it in nonprofits.
Yeah. You redistributed
stuck
it.
it.
I did, but I took the 28, we only gave them 12.
But it was already in the, it was
And you
already
just
into
put
the
it,
chamber.
and you just put it everywhere else.
You just took it out.
But it doesn't have to go into the tourism's budget, that's what I'm asking. That 28 that I took out, doesn't it have to go into their budget?
If you wanna move it to the tourism fund, we would need to amend the tourism's budget. I think there's two different ideas going. There's one that was take it out completely, and one was move it to tourism. As it is right now, they are getting the $12,000 and they are getting their $5,500 in dues, and that is
Yeah.
it.
Okay, is that, I mean,
Without an amendment to the tourism budget, that's how
okay,
it will
that's
go.
what I was wondering, if we were going to put it into the tourism's budget, or if we were just gonna take it out of our
Where are you,
nonprofits.
all your recalculations were to put it
It's been,
in nonprofits?
No, it was to take it out of, the 28,000 out of nonprofits,
Put it in our tourism budget.
and put it in the tourism budget
oh, okay. I see
instead.
what you're
You see
saying.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if we put it there, then we have to do a.
Correct. If
amendment
you would like to increase that, if you would like to give that chamber that 28,000, we would need to increase the expenditures on the tourism fund $28,000 here.
But now, what about the increases in the nonprofits?
No, those are done.
Right, but where did that money come from?
I took the, okay.
So that stayed the same. She took
Yes.
the 28,000 and give it to everyone else. But her plan, I believe,
Yes.
correct me, was to take that 28,000 out of the general fund and put that expenditure in the tourism fund.
But we can't if we just redistributed it to all the
To the
nonprofits.
nonprofit.
Right.
No, we didn't.
How much did you not use all of it?
So the $28,000, she's saying move that expenditure from the general fund to the tourism fund.
Yes. Yes.
But by taking that 28,000 from general fund and putting it in the tourism fund, because they said it was tourism, that freed up $28,000 to go to those other nonprofits.
But it didn't
Right,
just go
but
to
that-
tourism?
That's not tourism. It can't go to both places.
But you're not increasing revenue on the tourism, you're increasing the expenditure on the tourism side. You're using the money tourism already has. You're decreasing their fund balance by $28,000. The tourism fund balance by $28,000. If you add this expenditure in.
But why would you do that if it's going to the nonprofit?
It's not,
Or am I all alone here?
No, you're not.
Totally.
If you're taking the $28,000 from the chamber and redistributing among the nonprofits,
it doesn't.
In the general
come-
fund.
Yes, it doesn't, because it doesn't come out of the general fund. The tourism money
I
is the
understand.
tourism's money, so it's not taking it out of our general fund like the nonprofits come out of. This comes out of our general fund.
correct?
So if, we don't have to put it in tourism, that's just what they specified on there it was for.
But then we respent it.
We respent our general fund money. We didn't have any, we didn't spend tourism money, we only made general fund money.
You're
That's
still
all we
using
spent.
4% of property taxes for the nonprofits as
Yes.
restructured and voted on, and it's still at $152,000.
Yeah.
If you wanted to use the tourism fund, so hotel motel tax revenue, to pay for this tourism effort over at the Chamber of Commerce, that expenditure would need to be added to the tourism
Okay,
fund.
I see what you're
Which would
saying.
reduce your fund balance in the tourism.
But I don't wanna spend our tourism money on swag and stuff like that at the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, then we leave it where it's at.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okey
So
doke.
it would stay in the general fund?
don't ask me that.
Who's on first?
All right, so, again, we're voting on ordinance number 2025-10 as amended for the nonprofit appropriations and a slight change to payroll. Are there any further questions or discussions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sally Brown,
Yes.
Peter Dunlap,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby.
Yes.
Carrie Morton.
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes.
So the money's going to all the same places, it's just taking a
Yeah.
detour to get there. All right.
Item 11 is departmental reports. If anyone wishes to address the board, come on up.
This is more communication than anything. Dr. Bigby reached out to me. He's wanting to have a trail cleanup this Saturday at 8 AM at the Bigby River Trail. They're gonna kind of start the Sally's Alley parking lot and work their way around. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. And the second thing was, I've been, Steve Thomas is a gentleman that's reached out to me. I've talked to him for the past couple of weeks. He wanted to do a dedication to Mr. Elmer Martin Jr., McMinnville Rockets coach. And so we talked about a bench, we talked about a placard, we talked about several different things. What we ended up coming up with was an 8x10 placard that I'm having done for them. It's a bronze placard, and was gonna put it on the side of the Rocket Clubhouse, there next to the ball field. And they're gonna have a dedication, not a dedication, but June 21st from 1 to 5 there at Rocket Park. They're gonna use the clubhouse, have some food, and you know, showcase that. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm doing the sign for them. My guys will install it, and it'll go in the clubhouse.
Would you just give a time for that, June 21st?
Yeah, I did, June 21st from 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yep. Thank you.
Mr. Ming, do you have anything?
I guess two things. Gilly Pool's open. If you haven't been there yet, you gotta get there. The second thing is movies in the park have started, is that correct? Or they will be starting soon?
Starting soon.
When's the first one? Sorry, Justin.
It's okay. I don't have that exact date, but I can get that and put that in my weekly wrap-up. Renee has that, so Renee's gonna be highlighting different parks this summer. I was really excited about that, but I'll get that date for you. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Mr. Purtle? No. All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.